Australia's physio, Alex Kountouris, has been good enough to join us because there have been a few injuries in the Australian camp. Alex, thanks very much for your time, mate. ICC World Cup coming up. There's been a few injuries. Let's start at the top. Ricky Ponting, how's his finger?
Yeah, well, as you know, he's got a broken finger and he's returning slowly. It's healing gradually, so he has an X-ray sometime this week, which will give us a good indication of where he's at the moment. So he's going okay, but we need to wait for that bone to heal fully.
Is it frustrating because it is a finger and there's not a lot you can do except for time?
No, that's exactly it. I think he's bored as well, and it's hard for us because there's not much we can do to actually speed up the process. He's had all the treatment, he's had surgery on it, he's had pins inserted to help the bones stick together, but now we've just got to wait, let nature do its job, and hopefully in another week or so he'll be okay.
We'll move on to Mike Hussey. Mike Hussey, of course, did a fairly severe hamstring injury. How's he going along, and what does he need to do over the course of the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, he ruptured his hamstring. It came off the bones and he's had it reattached. It's quite an unusual injury. He's going okay. He's early on in his surgeries. He had surgery a week ago, so he's fairly early into the rehab process, and therefore we just need to take our time and see how it is like in a couple of weeks' time.
The last couple of games have seen two more injuries come to the fore. Nathan Horrocks, what did he do to his shoulder? It seemed relatively innocuous on the TV.
Yeah, he dislocated his shoulder. Normally you see people doing that with a lot more force than what he had, and particularly Nathan's never had a problem with his shoulder before, so it's quite unusual. He dislocated his shoulder, it's popped out, it's been put back in place obviously, and he's just having surgery as we speak now just to wash out the joint and make sure that there's no blood in the joint and give him the best chance to try bowling in a few weeks' time. It's sort of an outside chance that he'll be okay, but we're giving it every chance possible.
Is that a worse injury for a bowler than a batsman?
Yeah, obviously, because not only do they have to throw, but he needs to bowl with that arm. So for him, it's a worst case scenario. It's his right arm. He's an off spinner, and he's depending on his shoulders, to do his trade. But in the long term, I think he'll be okay. It's just whether we can get him up in the next 3 or 4 weeks as required.
Speaking of innocuous, Sean Tate's injury looked relatively innocuous at the top of the mark, but then he looked like he in quite a bit of pain. What's wrong, and what's his prognosis?
Yeah, he's not too bad. He's got an old hamstring tendon problem that he had a couple of years ago, and it's likely that he's just aggravated that a little bit. He's not too bad today, and we'll give him a few days though until he let it settle down completely. I expect that he'll be okay, but we just need to give it a few days for it to settle down.
Tell us this, who's the toughest, batsmen or bowlers? Who's the real toughest in the squad?
I think it depends on the person, but I'll give it to the bowlers because I think they've got a harder job.
Been very, very politically correct there, mate. Have you got any inside scoops for us? Anything that we need to know? Any little stories about any of the boys that they don't want you to tell us?
No, they're all pests basically. As you can see while we're doing this interview, they're throwing things at us. So no, they're all good fun to be around. So yeah, it's great. It's just great being part of the team.
Is this a good part of your job, or is this a terrible part of your job, having to deal with so many injuries at once and so many questions about such important players leading up to a very important tournament in the ICC World Cup?
Yeah, I would prefer if we had less injuries. Obviously, it keeps me in a job because there's work to do. But no, we'd rather have a few less injuries than what we've got at the moment. We've had a lot of unusual ones. Yeah, broken fingers, dislocated shoulders. They're things that sort of happen, fairly rarely, and there's not much you can do about them. But that's just part and parcel of what we do.
Well, mate, from the Australian cricket public, good luck in your job. Thanks very much for all the time, and let's hope that everyone gets better, back on track.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, thanks.